What does perfection look like when a wandmaker stops chasing it? Some craftsmen measure every cut, others rely on instinct. Antonio Villarama is a highly disciplined, skilled, and respected wandmaker, allowing his craft to be shaped by discipline and allowing chaos to complete his work. Today we're gonna step into Antonio Villarama's world. We're gonna create his wandmaker's mark, as well as the box that carries his creations into the world. And maybe we'll try to explore an idea for a wand design based on his chaotic discipline. Is that good?
That's perfect. I'm telling you, that's exactly what the algorithm wants.
Great. Now what?
Well, now you have to deliver on that promise.
Well, then roll the intro.
No, you do this one.
Me? Oh, with this?
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Slava, and we're back with the Order of Curiosity's world building. So let me tell you how this whole thing went down. It all started with the idea to design packaging for a wandmaker by the name Antonio Villarama. To explain who Antonio Villarama is, first we have to talk about another character, Thomas Wanderlei. Now, Thomas Wanderlei is an old master of wandcraft. He spent years perfecting his craft, a man that values precision, high attention to detail. Wanderlei is still somewhat of a conspicuous figure in the magical world. Nobody knows his story really, and naturally that creates a lot of mystery and rumors around the old man. And somewhere along the path, Wanderlei took attention of a young wandmaker by the name Antonio Villarama. Wanderlei, being a man of precision, was struck by Villarama's approach. He noticed the chaotic tendencies in the process and the end result of Villarama's work. Villarama, having a quirky and chaotic approach to his craft, was leading him to be dismissed rather quickly by the community. But Wanderlei saw an opportunity to foster a new protege. And this was the beginning of a really long mentorship endeavor. Now, through the years of mentorship, Villarama absorbed as much as he could from the old man, but it seems like his nature and the chaotic tendencies never went away. And interestingly enough, Wanderlei never pushed back on them. In this universe, I imagine that every wandmaker has his mark. It's sort of like a signature or a stamp of approval. It's more than just branding. It's believed that every mark that is left on a creation leaves a little bit behind of the craftsman himself, for the new owner or the holder of the wand to accept or decline whether he or she desires. When I was designing the mark for Villarama, I always thought how and if his mentorship would be reflected in his own branding in any sort of way. I mean, how do you bring the seriousness of Wanderlei and the quirky, chaotic unpredictability of Villarama? And as usual, I just decided to trust the process.
What you doing?
I'm just trying to find a typeface that will go with the Villarama's mark.
Oh, neat. So what are your thoughts?
I'm just trying to go through different typefaces here and just see whatever works. I want it to be cohesive with the mark, but also representative of the brand. I just can't seem to nail it yet.
Well, it's quite easy actually, but you don't really like to have fun, do you?
You want to come and show me, master?
Me? Sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, it's simple.
That is brilliant.
I know. You don't have to thank me.
I mean, it's both playful and serious.
Exactly. You're welcome.
It has that chaotic and quirky combination that I was thinking about.
No, seriously, you don't have to say anything.
I'm just gonna go back to the computer and finish it off. I played a little bit with the typography, and this is the end result that I've got. I think it's going in the right direction, so we're gonna stick to it. And I think now it's the time that we tackle the box design. But before that, I want to do something for you. Yes, you, the viewer. There is only about 50 people right now on this channel, and while I understand and expect growth over time, I don't want to get lost in the numbers. I want to set myself a reminder that every number on that subscriber count is a real human with a real story. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here, for finding interest in my craft, for spending your precious time here with me. A simple gesture of kindness goes real far, and sometimes a little word of encouragement is all that a man needs to keep going in tough times. So I made this reusable plaque. And I want to come back to it on occasion. I want to write your name in it, because you said something that was kind to another human being, not necessarily myself. Perhaps even you were just funny, or you said something that is worth mentioning. All I want to say is that I see you and I appreciate your presence. Now let's explore those chaotic tendencies as they would appear on the box design. Naturally, there is a feeling for a needed busyness of sorts, not overwhelming, but unmistakably present. And I thought I just need to dive deep into it and see where that takes me. At this point, I'm just trying not to think too much and let the creative exploration take the wheel. By the way, at this point I was working on the design and particularly thinking about color. And there are two things that I like to do sometimes just to see if there is any unexpected, pleasant surprises waiting to be uncovered. First one is, if you're working in Illustrator, use the Recolor Artwork tool. It's an easy way to test other palettes and see if there's other color combinations that you never thought of or you never thought of using. It's really easy to apply and just as easy to revert back if you don't like it. There are existing color books that you can choose. It's amazing. You should really try it sometime. And the second one is just grab any image, an image of a texture, of a gradient or a color block, lay it on top of your artwork and play with the blending modes, in particularly the difference and exclusion. Sometimes the results are unpredictably awesome. Just look at these things that I was able to pull out. I would never think to use these color palettes, but somehow it led to this discovery. Anyway, back to the art. So I've been pushing these pixels around for quite some time now, and honestly, it's such a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, at first you have no clear direction, and you don't know where to go and what to do. And then you just find something that you can cling on to, and see if you can pull something out of it. And honestly, it's been a rather fluent process this far, but something at the tail end of it started to feel off. The idea generator and inspiration to work on this has started to halt rather quickly. And speaking from my previous experience, that's usually a red flag. At this point, I'm feeling like I'm running in circles. I'm not exploring anything new, not making any improvements on the current design. So I just decided to step away for a moment and let myself decompress. After a few days, I come back with fresh eyes, I look at it, and I realize that there is a major dissonance. I mean, I'm looking at the artwork, and while I can clearly see potential, I'm also feeling a little bit of a creative block. You see, the way I perceive creative block is not as an absence of motivation, inspiration, or a total lack of creative ideas. It's more of a problem with identifying the end goal, the end result. So what is it that I'm trying but struggling to define? Now, revisiting the story of Antonio Villarama, I realized that I'm struggling to define what does chaotic really means in his craft. How does that chaos overlap with his quirkiness? And more importantly, how does Wanderlei and his influence exhibits in all of this? I mean, after all, it feels like a really important connection in this story, and I really don't want to lose it. Plus, I've noticed that the artwork and its natural progression was sort of misguided by another story arc in this universe. And the more I look at this design, the more I think that I'm not designing for Villarama at this point anymore, but for that other story arc. So I thought that I need to start over with a different approach. Now, this might be a good time to come clean about something. You see, Villarama is not an entirely made-up character. He is sort of inspired by a friend of mine named Anthony Wheeler, who is an incredible artist that draws and illustrates for children's books. His artwork is fantastic, and it somehow lies in the intersection of chaos and control. You can start to see the similarities. And one of the things that Anthony does with his community is these short burst timed drawings that are based on completely random prompts. And naturally, he refers to them as chaotic drawings. And I thought it was such a natural connection to our character Antonio Villarama. So in the spirit of weaving that tradition into our world, I thought that perhaps Antonio himself also uses a similar method to approach his craft. So what I've imagined is that Antonio keeps a jar with absolutely random notes or words or things. For example, cycle, bore, bone, airy, and I'd imagined that his experimentations would come from these non-lateral connections. After all, creativity and experimentation is exactly that, trying to draw a connection between things when there is seemingly none. And by the way, this is where I'm bringing you in right now, because this far I've been just filming behind the scenes, and now we're all caught up and we're gonna move on together forward from this point on. So let's draw a couple of random notes and see if there's ideas for wand packaging design and maybe for wand design, and sort of step into the shoes of Villarama with this approach. The first one is target, scales, night, current, silence, echo. When do I stop? I mean, let's just draw a couple of more and see if we can make sense of it all. Ember, bone, and let's do one more so that we get an even number. Breath. It seems like I've only got 9, so let's pull one more. Fabric. Now I have a stack of these ideas and I'm thinking we're gonna separate them into 2 groups of 5 and see if there's anything that we can come up with, and maybe it's something totally random, but let's just give it a go. Alright guys, so I've been looking at this list, right, and I sort of have like an impromptu board here with me so I can rearrange the ideas and see if there's anything that sparks an idea. Now, instead of doing 2 groups of 5, I've decided to do 5 groups of 2, sort of like pairs. So I've started with the obvious ones, the ones that immediately triggered any sort of imagery or an idea. And the first pair is breath and night, and immediately I thought there's a tone of something watching you or lurking in the night. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to make connections and come up with imagery that would put me into Villarama's shoes. Man, I feel like a waiter holding this here. And the second pair is ember and current, and I immediately thought of things like fire and embracing the chaos, right? And an image of a firestorm or maybe a hurricane comes to mind, and I think it's very fitting to Villarama. The third pair is echo and bone, and I think these are also kind of like work nicely together. I'm thinking something from the past, maybe an image of sarcophagus or a tomb or something like that comes to mind. The fourth one is scales and silence, and at first I was thinking scales like dragon or snake scales, but then I thought of it as an equilibrium, a balance of sorts. The silence, it almost amplifies that feeling. There is an equilibrium that is undisputed in some way. No really imagery, but there is a feeling associated with that. And now the last one, since this was sort of like leftovers, this was a far stretch, but my process with it was like this. It's target and fabric. And at first, I thought of things like those old potato bags that people use as practice targets, right? But the more I thought about targets and the design of it, I sort of thought of spider webs and the idea of a prey being inside the target, like a spider catches something, right? And the fabric is essentially what he weaves, right? So there's a connection that makes sense to me at this point. Anyway, so this is the imagery that I'm gonna start with, and hopefully I can make something work. Now, looking at these things, as much as I hate to say it, I feel like I need to abandon the previous design, and even though I really like it, and I think I really want to repurpose it for the other story arc that I've mentioned, but I just want to get myself or let myself get pulled into this new direction without any friction. So let's just do that. Now, staring into the abyss and the endlessness that is my empty Illustrator canvas, I want to try a different approach. Not an illustrative kind, but try to call on an abstraction of the idea from the pairs that we pulled. I picked the easiest pair to start with, ember and current. I drew a simple spiral and then tried to draw flames around the spiral and see how that turns out. I'm keeping calmer tones for now. I don't want to introduce color at this point. I want to remove anything that will distract me or confuse me in the process. I want to concentrate on the core idea first. You know, I actually like this. I like how simple it is, how it's not too literal, and it's really open to your imaginative interpretation. Now, I wonder how just different I want each design to be. This is right now just a simple background graphic of sorts, and we'll still have to come up with things to tie everything together. And we'll worry about that in a minute. So then I was browsing the internet for inspiration, and I fell into the rabbit hole that is Halftone graphics. By the way, I found a lovely tutorial on YouTube, and I'm gonna include the link to it in the description, and this is what I used to create the next one. Now, it's really easy to create a halftone graphic with lots of details. Finer lines means there's a lot of detail that you can include in the image. But I thought, what if we explore the opposite? What is the minimal threshold that we need to meet in order for the graphic to be legible, but also to use as minimal amount of elements as possible? And it seemed like the combination of the words echo and bone were an appropriate one for this one, because I simply just wanted an interesting illustration of a skull. Now, I've quickly set up a file with a threshold to create the halftone effect. Now I'm thinking bone plus echo, and the repeating lines on their own are already kind of like playing into that. Now, the way the effect works is you have an image that you want to turn into a halftone graphic. And then on top of it, you have some sort of a pattern. So in this instance, I'm using diagonal lines. Now, the way halftone graphics work is like this. We have an image that has dark and light values all throughout. And then on top of it, we have some sort of a pattern. So in our case, we're using diagonal repeating lines. And the threshold allows for the line to be changed based on the value of the image underneath. So the darker the image underneath, the thinner the line will get, until it reaches complete darkness, then the line disappears. And the lighter the value gets, the thicker the line becomes. If you want the line to be tapered in any way, you just need to have some sort of an ease, so a gradient of sorts. And if you want the line to disappear without tapering, all you need to have is the darkest and the lightest value side by side without much of a transition between them. I think this one was pretty straightforward, and I really like how it ended up. Now, it seems like I'm really enjoying this whole halftone thing, so I'm just gonna try another design in that vein. Now, I was scouring the internet for inspiration of more halftone graphics. And one of the images I saw was of an eye, but the graphic element on top of it was a spiral instead of diagonal lines like we've used. So I wanted to try and recreate that. Typically I save reference images, but this one just kind of slipped out because I was looking so fast through all of them. And now for the life of me, I can't find it anymore. But anyway, we're just gonna try to recreate that. By the way, at this point, I'm already thinking of names that Villarama could have gave his creations, but I think we'll keep these till the end, so stick around. And on to the next. And the next one that we have is scales and silence. It's sort of like an equilibrium piece. And the more I thought about the imagery behind that, the only thing that really jumped to my mind was like just a wall with a bunch of skulls. And they're all the same. Nothing is different about them. Perfectly in balance. All is equals. And naturally, because I was still curious about the whole halftone thing, I wanted to try another one, but with a pattern that is not made of lines, but of little stars instead. And this one was really easy to execute. It's just a bunch of repeating skulls with a star graphic pattern on top of it, and the threshold just barely showing the design through it. And then finally, the last one. Target and fabric. And for this one, I wanted to step away from the halftone and go back to the beginning with a flat graphic design. And all I did is I looked up a bunch of stock photos of spider webs. I converted them to black and white. I crank up the contrast so they're really punchy. Then I would bring them into Illustrator, vectorize them, smooth them out, and then I throw a texture on top of it to distress the image, crank up the contrast again, vectorize it again, smooth it out, and do this over and over and over until you start to get only a glimpse of an idea, but with a really flat execution. I feel like I've been doing this project for so long now, but there's a healthy cadence to it right now, so I don't want to let it slip away. So all I'm thinking is just let's work on it a little bit more and bring everything together. I've decided to create a border around the graphic to sort of contain that chaotic design. I'm also gonna add little imperfections to the pattern and sprinkles of color here and there, and I decided to retain the color palette, but I still wanted to introduce a bit of life to it somehow. So I think we'll design some additional labels and add little elements to add the playfulness, at least that way. So let's just write the end of it and watch it all come together. Well, it's finally done. I can't believe how long it took, but this was such a roller coaster of emotions, and it was such a creative project to do, and I'm really happy I've done it, and I'm really happy I'm not gonna have to do it again for a while. Now, I knew I want to actually create a physical mock-up of one of the boxes. So naturally, I made all 5. So if you guys are ready, let's take a look at the hero shots and then we'll discuss. So yeah, this is the final design, and I think it turned out to be rather great. At least I didn't have high hopes for it, but I'm actually really proud of this work. And at the tail end of the video montage, you saw me create a pattern, and that pattern was to have the inner side of the box. So each pattern is actually complementary to each wand. So as you guys remember, I mentioned that Villarama probably names his wands, so I took the liberty to name them myself. The first one was the Scales and Silence one, and I called it the Equator. The second one was the Ember and Current, and I named it Hephaesto. The Target and Fabric is Spider Silk. The Breath and Night is Paranoia. And finally, Echo and Bone was Memento. And what I think that went well in this particular project is that I was able to capture the essence of Villarama, at least the way I kind of think about him. There's the chaotic element in the pattern that we created, but there's also that friendly, goofy, and maybe quirky side of Villarama that is still present through the label, through the little card that he leaves on the box, and even in the pattern on the inner side of the box as well. And through the final details of the design, you can see glimpses of Villarama's personality. He understands the delicate balance between being a master of his craft, but also remaining unmistakably human and relatable. And as you open the box, and particularly this is the Spider Silk one, you're greeted with a little description card of the wand itself. It just shows you the little details, the kind of wood that it's made out of. Again, little glimpses of Villarama's character. And underneath it is the wand itself. And like I've mentioned at the beginning of the video, I also wanted to create an actual wand for Villarama. Now, the creation of the wand itself turned out to be just as fun of a process to make as the graphic design for the packaging itself. I didn't film much of the process, but it's really straightforward. Let me just kind of shortly explain. So it all started with a wooden stick like this, and all I did to it was I just tried to make it into a cone shape by shaving off the wood with a knife. Then I took a picture of it, brought it into my iPad, and I just laid a loose kind of illustration of what spider webs would look like on a wand. And then it's really straightforward. You grab a pencil, draw the same thing on the wand itself. And then I have a set of these rotary tools that you can use to pretty much engrave onto anything, and these work really well with woodworking. I was just able to chip away at the wood just enough to create indents. And when I was done with the indents, I just decided to burn it. No, literally, just put some fire to it to create this charred effect, polish it, and then you burn it again, and then you polish it until you get the desired effect on the end. As for the butt end of the wand itself, I actually found a wooden knob. I sort of sliced it in half, moved around the pieces, glued them together, and then glued them to the back of the wand. I made few more indents with my rotary tool, put some yellow jewels in it, taper it with the golden cap, and that's pretty much how it turned out to be. When I look at it, I mean, it does remind me of spiders in some way. I mean, the pattern is unmistakably spider web-like. I apologize for not documenting the process of creating this wand. I think I didn't know what it is that I'm trying to do here, and it was a lot of experiment, as I've never really done any woodworking before. It turned out to be real great, and I would love to actually come back and make a whole episode about just creating a wand for Villarama, for Wanderlei, or any other wand maker in our universe. So if you think that this type of content would resonate with you, just let me know, because I think I would love to create something on this, just a whole episode dedicated to creating a wand, either for Villarama, Wanderlei, or anybody else in our universe. So this is it. And again, I see you, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Stay kind, stay curious, and go create something, because it is absolutely worth it. I'll see you guys in the next one.